Right at this very moment, billions of Christians around the world are stepping into their churches for Sunday worship. Most of them share one absolute certainty, that this weekly tradition was established by the Bible itself. But what if this widespread belief is built on a monumental misunderstanding? When asked to provide biblical proof for replacing the Saturday Sabbath with Sunday, religious leaders almost always point to one specific verse, Acts chapter 20, verse 7. On the first day of the week, we came together to break bread. Paul spoke to the people, and because he intended to leave the next day, kept on talking until midnight. From this one brief sentence, the Christian world jumped to the massive conclusion that the early church and the apostles officially abandoned the Sabbath to worship and break bread every Sunday. But did the Apostle Paul and the first church actually dare to abolish God's eternal Sabbath to create a new day of worship? Or have we been witnessing the greatest out-of-context misinterpretation in church history, a deception spanning almost 2 millennia? In today's video, we are going to peel back the layers of history and scripture to reveal the shocking truth behind Acts 20 verse 7. What was the real reason they gathered to break bread on that particular Sunday? And what day did the early church truly keep holy? Stick with me until the very end, because the revelation you are about to hear will completely transform your faith, and it directly connects to the ultimate key to entering the kingdom of heaven. Decoding the misconception of Acts 26 through 7. To understand how subtle this deception really is, look at how people interpret Acts 27. Most focus on just 2 phrases, the first day of the week and break bread. From this, a massive narrative was built. Jesus resurrected on Sunday, so the apostles changed the day of worship. This breaking of bread in Troas is the ultimate proof for weekly Sunday church. But here is the truth. That is a massive logical flaw. You cannot completely abolish the 4th commandment of God by clinging to one single, isolated verse. That is the peak of manipulating biblical context. Think about it rationally. Would the devout apostles, who were willing to die for God's laws, casually throw away the Creator's eternal Sabbath just because of one evening gathering? When you quote verse 7, but deliberately ignore what happened in verse 6, you are holding one puzzle piece and fooling yourself into believing you see the whole picture. To shatter this deception, we only need to ask one logical question. If Acts chapter 20 verse 7 actually established Sunday worship, then the Apostle Paul must have kept Sunday every single week, right? So what does the Bible actually say about his lifelong habit? Paul's true habit. He never stopped keeping the Sabbath. The Bible leaves no room for guessing. Throughout the entire book of Acts, the Apostle Paul consistently kept the 7th-day Sabbath. Let the scriptures speak for themselves. Acts 17:2. As was his custom, Paul went into the synagogue, and on 3 Sabbath days he reasoned with them from the scriptures. Acts 18:4. Every Sabbath he reasoned in the synagogue, trying to persuade Jews and Greeks. Notice the words carefully. Every Sabbath, and as was his custom. This wasn't a coincidence. This was his lifelong lifestyle. If Paul supposedly changed the day of worship to Sunday, why do we see him strictly keeping the Sabbath everywhere he went? If the early church had already shifted to Sunday, Paul would have been preaching against the Sabbath. Instead, he kept it holy. The undeniable truth is, Paul never abandoned God's eternal Sabbath. So this brings us to a massive, unavoidable question. If Paul didn't replace the Sabbath with Sunday, then what exactly was happening in Acts 27? If that gathering wasn't a regular weekly Sunday church service, what was it? Why were they breaking bread and staying awake until midnight? The answer is right there in the Bible, hidden in plain sight, and it has nothing to do with a weekly Sunday service. The truth about Paul's Sunday, the Feast of Firstfruits. To discover what that specific Sunday really was, we simply have to read the verse right before it. The secret is completely exposed in Acts 26. Acts 20 verse 6. But we sailed from Philippi after the festival of unleavened bread. Did you catch that? After the festival of unleavened bread. This is the ultimate chronological key. In the biblical calendar, the festival of unleavened bread is a major annual event. And according to Leviticus chapter 23, the very first Sunday immediately following the festival of unleavened bread has a specific holy name, the Day of Firstfruits. 2,000 years ago, Jesus Christ was crucified on Friday, which was the Feast of Unleavened Bread. 3 days later, on Sunday, he conquered death and resurrected. By doing so, Jesus perfectly fulfilled the prophetic Day of Firstfruits. Therefore, the first day of the week, mentioned in Acts 27, wasn't just a random Sunday, and it certainly wasn't a new weekly church service. It was the annual Resurrection Day. They were gathered there to celebrate the anniversary of Jesus rising from the dead. But you might ask, okay, it was Resurrection Sunday, but why did they specifically gather to break bread until midnight? The answer to this is one of the most beautiful and profound revelations in the New Testament. Go back to the very day Jesus resurrected in the Gospel of Luke. 2 disciples were walking on the road to Emmaus. The resurrected Jesus walked right beside them, talked with them, but their spiritual eyes were blinded. They couldn't recognize their Savior. When did they finally realize it was him? Luke 24:30-31. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened and they recognized him. It was at the exact moment of breaking the bread. The early church and the apostles gathered to break bread on that annual Resurrection Sunday to commemorate that exact miraculous moment. They broke bread to remember the instant the resurrected Christ opened the eyes of his disciples. It was a deeply sacred, once-a-year memorial. It was never, absolutely never, a commandment to replace the eternal, seventh-day Sabbath. If the early church never replaced the Sabbath with Sunday, then what is the true Sabbath day, and why does it matter so much for us today? Which day is the true Sabbath? Following the footsteps of Jesus. If the Sabbath was never changed to Sunday, then what day does God actually command us to keep holy? The answer has been crystal clear since the very dawn of human history. In the book of Genesis, after 6 days of creating the heavens and the earth, the Creator did something completely unique on the 7th day. He rested, blessed it, and made it holy. Later, he carved this eternal command into stone with his own finger. Exodus chapter 20 verses 8-10. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. So which day of the week is the biblical 7th day? Today, some modern calendars might trick you into thinking Sunday is the 7th day of the weekend. But both history and the Bible explicitly prove that the 7th day is Saturday. Listen to how the Gospel of Mark describes the exact day Jesus resurrected. Mark 16:9. When Jesus rose early on the first day of the week, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene, out of whom he had driven 7 demons. If Sunday is the first day of the week, then the 7th day, the biblical Sabbath, is undeniably Saturday. This is an indisputable historical and biblical fact. And who set the ultimate example for us to follow? Jesus Christ himself. Luke 4:16. He went to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and on the Sabbath day he went into the synagogue, as was his custom. He stood up to read. Jesus, the Lord of the Sabbath, kept the 7th-day Sabbath according to his custom. The apostles walked in his exact footsteps, keeping Saturday holy. They never worshipped on the sun god's day. They worshipped the Creator on the Creator's day. But some people argue, didn't the Sabbath end when Jesus died on the cross? If the Sabbath was truly nailed to the cross, then why did Jesus give a chilling warning about the Sabbath? A warning that applies directly to the last days and his second coming. The Sabbath, an eternal sign until the end of the world. If the Sabbath was truly nailed to the cross and abolished, then why did Jesus issue a chilling warning about it for the future? When Jesus was speaking to his disciples about the Great Tribulation and the end of the world, he gave them a very specific instruction. Matthew 24:20. Pray that your flight will not take place in winter or on the Sabbath. Think deeply about this. Jesus was looking far into the future, long after his crucifixion. He commanded his followers to pray that they wouldn't have to flee on the Sabbath. Why? Because he fully expected his true people to still be keeping the Sabbath holy right up until the end of time. The Sabbath did not disappear after the cross. The commandment did not change. It remains a crucial test of obedience for those living in the last days. But it goes even deeper than obedience. The Sabbath is a spiritual signature. It is the ultimate identifier of God's true people. Ezekiel 20:12. Also I gave them my Sabbaths as a sign between us, so they would know that I, the Lord, made them holy. The Sabbath is not just an ordinary day of rest. It is the eternal sign, the mark, between God and his faithful remnant. When you keep the seventh-day Sabbath, you are carrying the seal of the Creator, publicly acknowledging his absolute authority over your life. But this brings us to a terrifying reality. If the seventh-day Sabbath is God's eternal sign, what happens to those who knowingly reject it to follow the Sunday traditions created by men? The answer to that question reveals the ultimate key to entering the kingdom of heaven. The key to entering the kingdom of heaven. So what is the ultimate key to entering the kingdom of heaven? It's not about how passionately we sing on Sunday morning or how loudly we cry out in prayer. Jesus himself gave us the exact, unwavering standard of salvation. Matthew 7:21. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. This is the ultimate dividing line. Worshipping on Sunday is a massive tradition passed down by human beings. But keeping the seventh-day Sabbath holy is the absolute, unchanging will of God. The Creator never authorized anyone, no pope, no emperor, and no pastor, to change his eternal law. We are living in the final hours of Earth's history. It is time to wake up. It is time to cast aside the false rumors, step out of centuries of deception, and return to the pure, unadulterated truth of the Bible. The choice is now yours. Will you follow the traditions of the world, or will you do the will of the Father in heaven? If this video has opened your spiritual eyes to the truth today, do not keep it to yourself. Hit the subscribe button to join our channel, like this video, and share it with everyone you know so the light of truth can shatter the darkness. May God deeply bless you as you take the courageous step of obedience. Keep watching, keep seeking, and I will see you in the next video.